Hi everyone, Rainbow Brite here today, Wisp here, and today we're going to talk about Freedom Day and the Forone Rikes. Now, I was from the Forone Rikes on Earth before I came to Rainbow Land to be the Overwatcher of Rainbow Land, to bring the bringer of cast and light and brightness to not only the Earth but to all worlds that God made and put life on. Now, the 4-1 now, Freedom Day in the 4-1 Rikes is a big deal. Then Freedom Day in any land's a big deal. You see, the 4-1 Rikes wasn't always a free land. It was a settling. And from between 20 YL to 1776 YL, it was a settling of the 4-1 kingdom. And they had very few rights. Well, they had some freedoms, we'll put it that way. We'll say they had some freedoms. Now, the bind didn't start until after the 4-1 kingdom beat Frankish land, and by doing so, they end up getting to settle land as another one of their settlings in North Finland. Now, that wouldn't have been a big deal. The big deal came when they didn't have enough gold anymore due to the war worthing too much or being too dear, too high. They felt about raising kingly income toll, which you would think once again is no big deal. If you're a Reich, you are spoken for, then you can have income toll taken out. But it wasn't only the Reichs in the 4-1 kingdom, because they do got Reichs. It was also the settlings that also got an income toll taken out. And the four between settlings felt that that was wrong. Since they were a settling and not a Reich, it meant they couldn't choose the lords for the house of the lords or the folks for the house of the folks. And they couldn't choose the first Wicker, who had become the head of the leadership arm of the kingly law mote in 1721 YL. Now, by the time this started, the king was King George Blesbreach Handberg the Freewith, and the first Wicker who had been chosen around that time was Frederick North, Lord Frederick North, because he was a lord. Now, anyway, at first they fought, no big deal, but over time when income toll was being raised on everything, from food to clothing, you would think food and clothing shouldn't be income tolled unless it's being made for you, but this was before that thought even came around. And news sheets, tea, everything. The four between settlings fought, if we are being income tolled and we're not a Reich, then we should have some say in the Winnimold. But this was struck down under the grounds that they were a settling and not a Reich. So they couldn't choose anyone to be chosen to speak for them and make laws in the behalf of them in the Winnimold. And they couldn't choose the first Wicker. Well, the 4-1 settlings made such a big thing about this that the first Wicker, Frederick North, chose that he would have the income toll dropped, which he did, but that still was not enough, because the third between settlings wanted a say in the Winnimold. They wanted to choose their lords and their folks for the Winnimold. They wanted to choose the first Wicker, but they were a settling and not a Reich, so they didn't have that say. But it kept making such a big thing about it. And then another thing that they didn't like was during wartime, they had to let war fighters come in their house. And even if you didn't want to, under law, you had to. Your land could become their land in times of war, which the 4-1 settlings already dealt with during the Frankish land war between Frankish land and the 4-1 kingdom, who had been warring on and off for years at that time. And but the Winnimold didn't feel the same way the first Wicker felt, and they had sent their war fighters over to let the 4-1 settlings know, you're a settling, shut up. You're not a Reich, so you don't have any say on anything that happens. The 4-1 settlings didn't really even have a say in who their settling leaders were, who their Winnemolts were, anything like that. And it became a big thing, I guess. And some folks may have said or did something. Some folks started to scathe the king and the first Wicker and the Winnemolt, for they couldn't trust them anymore. And maybe someone may have said or did something, and they lost their, and they may have thought they had the freedom of speech and the freedom of worship, which they did under the eyes of God, but in the 4-1 Kingdom's kingly law mode, not so true. And most likely they then said, if you're going to keep misbehaving, we're going to take your freedoms away from you. And then came the tea, which was highly income-tolded by that time, and the 4-1, the third between settlings, which fought that time to show them we're not happy with the things, and threw all the tea into the waterway, to say, yeah, we don't like the income toll thing. And everyone back home thought that, everyone back in the 4-1 Kingdom thought that having tea from the 4-1 Kingdom would be great, but not understanding the income toll was still too high. The sales toll on the tea also went up too, and they were unhappy with that, so they threw that out. Well, the Winnemolt had enough, and the Winnemolt took the freedom of free speech and away from them, and also ended up telling them, you can get those freedoms back, and also took away their right to choose their settling leaders away from them, and said, you can get some of that back when you choose to behave like the rest of our settlings. Well, all that did was just piss the 4-1 settlings off so much that they wanted to become free. And in 1776, they ended up making the land body gathering, where all the or all the settling elders, or at least the ones that hadn't got overthrown, because guess what? The settling leaders that the 4-1 Kingdom named or were chosen were overthrown. So they had new folks that were heading up the settlings. And they chose to become free on the 7th month of 4th, 1776, while they then sent a sheet over to the 4-1 Kingdom, letting King George Big Bleach Hamburg with First Wicker Frederick North and the Winnemolt know that they had broken their trust. They took their freedoms and did not give them any say in their Winnemolt, and handle them so badly they could not trust them anymore, and they chose to become their own land. Well, this didn't go down well with the Winnemolt, and the Winnemolt chose to go to war and called in the land might. And there was a lot of war going on between both sides, and from 1776 YL to 1788 YL, that was how long the war went for. Then the 4-1 Kingdom finally dropped the ghost and were like, yeah, we can't win this. Frankisland also helped the 4-1 settlings out too, and them becoming free. To get back at the 4-1 Kingdom for beating them in a war, which happened before all this other shit happened. And after that, the 4-1 Rikes became the 4-1 Rikes. But it wasn't until 1790 while that the 4-1 Rikes Gaver Law Moat was set up. And it's been a folk Reich ever since that day. And it's been free ever since that day too. And yes, there have been many fear strikers and sea thieves and other angry lands that always wish to take down the 4-1 Reichs, and it hasn't happened. So today, is Freedom Day in the Forone Rikes, and I am truly happy for it. I am thankful that my land is free and still free. Have a rainbow day.